The Grand Council of Interstellar Civilizations loomed over the galaxy like a colossal monument to order and stability. Its chambers, vast and imposing, stretched far beyond human comprehension. Holographic displays flickered in mid-air, casting an eerie glow across the faces of dozens of alien species. The air crackled with tension, a palpable force that seemed to push against Chancellor William Boltar's chest as he stood before the assembly. Boltar's eyes swept across the chamber, taking in the myriad of alien features. Some were vaguely humanoid, others defied description, but all shared one common trait: cold, superior disdain. The silence that had fallen was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of advanced technology and the occasional rustle of clothing or appendages. The High Counselor, a towering being with metallic-like scales and multiple eyes, fixed its gaze upon Boltar. Its voice, when it spoke, seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. Chancellor Boltar, you stand before this council to answer for humanity's transgressions against galactic law and order. Boltar straightened his back, his face a mask of calm determination. He had known this moment was coming, had prepared for it. But the reality of facing down the collected might of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations still sent a chill down his spine. The High Counselor continued, its voice growing harder with each word. The charges against humanity are grave. Unchecked expansionism, threatening the balance of power in multiple sectors. The development and implementation of dangerous technologies, including artificial intelligences, that could pose an existential threat to organic life. Blatant disregard for established galactic protocols and treaties. A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. Boltar could feel their judgment, their predetermined verdict, pressing down on him like a physical weight. What say you to these accusations, Chancellor? The High Counselor's multiple eyes blinked in unison, a gesture that might have been comical in any other situation. Boltar took a deep breath, centering himself. He had one chance to make humanity's case, to appeal to reason and fairness. But as he looked around the chamber, he saw no allies, no sympathetic faces. Only cold calculation and barely concealed contempt. Esteemed members of the Council, Boltar began, his voice steady and clear, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. I stand before you not to deny humanity's actions, but to contextualize them, to shed light on the motivations and circumstances that have led us to this point. He paused, gauging the room's reaction. The aliens remained impassive, but he could sense a ripple of curiosity. He pressed on. You accuse us of unchecked expansionism. I ask you to consider the position we found ourselves in when we first ventured beyond our solar system. A fledgling species, alone in a vast and often hostile galaxy. We expanded not out of greed or a desire for conquest, but out of necessity, to secure resources, to ensure the survival of our species. Boltar's eyes locked with those of the High Counselor. As for the development of artificial intelligence, I remind the Council that humanity has always pushed the boundaries of technology. It is in our nature to explore, to innovate. The AIs we have created are tools, nothing more. They are bound by strict ethical protocols and fail-safes. A low growl emanated from one corner of the chamber. Boltar turned to see a massive, fur-covered alien leaning forward, its teeth bared. And what of the treaties you've violated? It snarled. The established order you've disrupted. Boltar met the alien's gaze unflinchingly. With all due respect, I must point out the hypocrisy inherent in that accusation. How many of the species represented here have bent or broken galactic law when it suited their interests? How many have exploited loopholes in treaties to gain advantages over their rivals? A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Boltar had crossed an unspoken line, calling out the powerful races that dominated the Council, but he pressed on, knowing he had nothing left to lose. The truth is, humanity has done what was necessary to survive and thrive in a galaxy that often seemed indifferent or hostile to our existence. We've made mistakes, yes. We've overstepped at times. But our intentions have always been to coexist peacefully, to contribute to the greater galactic community. Boltar spread his arms wide, a gesture of openness and honesty. We stand ready to make amends, to work with the Council to address any legitimate concerns. All we ask is for fair consideration, for the opportunity to— Enough! The High Councillor's voice boomed through the chamber, cutting Boltar off mid-sentence. We have heard your arguments, Chancellor Boltar. They change nothing. The alien's multiple eyes narrowed, focusing intently on Boltar. This council has deliberated long and hard on the matter of humanity. Your words today only confirm our decision. Boltar's heart sank. He had known deep down that this was a foregone conclusion, but a part of him had hoped, had believed that reason and justice might prevail. The High Councillor rose to its full, imposing height. By unanimous decision of the Grand Council of Interstellar Civilizations, humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Alliance. All trade routes involving Earth and its colonies are to be immediately severed. All treaties and agreements are null and void. The Sol system and all human-controlled territories are to be placed under strict sanctions, effective immediately. The pronouncement hit Boltar like a physical blow. He struggled to maintain his composure as the implications of the Council's decision cascaded through his mind. Billions of lives would be affected. Entire economies would collapse. The very survival of humanity might be at stake. But he refused to show weakness. Not here. Not now. The High Councillor's voice softened slightly, taking on an almost patronizing tone. This decision is final, Chancellor Boltar. You and your delegation will be escorted from the Council chambers. We suggest you return to Earth and prepare your people for the changes to come. Boltar stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. Then, slowly, deliberately, he straightened his back and lifted his chin. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him broken. As the human delegation was led towards the exit, Boltar turned back to face the Council one last time. His eyes, burning with a mixture of defiance and determination, swept across the assembled aliens. You will regret this, he said, his voice low but carrying clearly through the hushed chamber. It wasn't a threat, but a statement of fact. A promise. Then he turned and walked out, his steps measured and dignified. The doors of the Council chamber closed behind him with a resounding thud, sealing humanity's fate. The journey back to the human ship was a blur. Boltar moved on autopilot, his mind already racing ahead, considering the monumental challenges that now faced his species. As he boarded the sleek vessel that had brought them to this fateful meeting, he felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. The ship's interior was a stark contrast to the alien grandeur of the Council chambers. Clean lines, efficient design, and interfaces built for human use surrounded him. It felt like home, a small bastion of humanity in the vast, now hostile expanse of space. Boltar made his way to the bridge, where the ship's captain and senior staff awaited him. Their faces were grim, having already received word of the Council's decision. "Orders, sir?" the captain asked, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. Boltar took a deep breath. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to get back and start implementing contingency plans immediately." As the ship's engines hummed to life, Boltar moved to the large viewport dominating one wall of the bridge. The glittering expanse of stars stretched out before him, once a symbol of opportunity and adventure. Now, it seemed cold and threatening. The sudden acceleration of the ship pushed Boltar back from the viewport. He steadied himself, eyes fixed on the rapidly shrinking pinpoint of light that marked the Galactic Council's headquarters. As Earth's delegation sped homeward, the true weight of their situation began to settle over the vessel like a suffocating blanket. Boltar's comm unit crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Chancellor, we're receiving distress signals from our outer colonies. It's bad, sir." He didn't need to ask for details. The Council's decision was already rippling across human space like a shockwave. Boltar could almost see it in his mind's eye. Trade routes collapsing, supply lines disintegrating, panic spreading faster than any virus. "Put it on the main screen," Boltar ordered, his voice steady despite the churning in his gut. The viewport transformed into a mosaic of chaos. Dozens of transmissions played out simultaneously, each one a snapshot of a world in crisis. On Novus Prime, the farthest human colony, crowds swarmed the spaceports, desperate to secure passage on the last outbound ships. Terra Vista's agricultural domes were shutting down as alien-engineered crops withered without crucial xenobiological treatments. The massive refineries on Helios 9 went dark, their power conduits severed by council decree. But it was the medical transmissions that hit hardest. On Zenith Station, orbiting a distant pulsar, a hospital administrator's face filled one corner of the screen, his eyes wide with panic. "We're out of Zenith 7, he reported, referring to a crucial vaccine developed by an alien species. "Without it, the Proxima Plague will... God help us all." Boltar's fists clenched at his sides. The council knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't just political maneuvering. It was a calculated attack on humanity's most vulnerable points. "Sir," his aide's voice was hesitant, "the Outer Rim Consortium is demanding to speak with you. They're threatening to break away and negotiate independently with the council if we don't reverse this somehow." For a moment, Boltar allowed himself to feel the full weight of despair. Humanity had stretched itself thin across the stars, relying on a complex web of interspecies trade and cooperation. Now that web was unraveling and billions of lives hung in the balance, but despair was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not now. "Tell them I'll address everyone the moment we reach Earth," Boltar said, his mind already racing ahead. "And get me a secure line to Admiral Adamo. We need to implement Operation Firewall immediately." The rest of the journey passed in a blur of urgent communications and hastily drawn plans. By the time Earth's familiar blue orb filled the viewport, Boltar had a clear picture of the catastrophe unfolding across human space, and the beginnings of a strategy to weather the storm. The ship docked at Orbital Station 1, humanity's crown jewel in near-Earth space. Usually a hub of frenetic activity, today the station felt like a ghost town. Alien merchants and diplomats had vanished, leaving behind half-empty corridors and a palpable sense of unease. Boltar strode purposefully through the station, flanked by his security detail. They made their way to the Grand Assembly Hall, where representatives from every human world and major faction were gathering. Some had managed to arrive in person, while others attended via hologram, their flickering forms a stark reminder of the communication networks already breaking down. As Boltar entered, a hush fell over the assembled leaders. He could see the fear in their eyes, the desperation etched on their faces. These were men and women used to wielding power, to shaping the destiny of entire worlds. Now they looked lost, adrift in a suddenly hostile universe. Boltar took his place at the podium, surveying the room. He allowed the silence to stretch for a moment, gathering his thoughts and his resolve. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "I won't sugarcoat our situation. The Galactic Council has cast us out, severed our trade routes, and left us to fend for ourselves in a universe that suddenly seems much colder and more dangerous than it did yesterday." A murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of anger and fear. Boltar pressed on. "Already we're seeing the effects. Our colonies are cut off from vital supplies. Our economies are in freefall. Panic is spreading faster than we can contain it." He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Then, his voice grew stronger, infused with a determination that seemed to fill the entire room. "But let me be clear. This is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end. This is our moment to show the galaxy, and ourselves, what humanity is truly capable of." Boltar's eyes blazed as he continued. "The Council thinks they've crippled us. They believe that by cutting us off, they'll force us to crawl back, begging for scraps. They're wrong. Dead wrong." He began to pace the stage, his energy infectious. Yes, we've relied on alien technology and trade. Yes, we've become complacent in some ways. But at our core, we are still the same species that clawed its way out of Earth's gravity well. We are innovators, explorers, survivors. The mood in the room began to shift. Fear gave way to curiosity, then to a tentative hope. I've already set in motion plans to secure our most critical resources and shore up our defenses. But that's just the beginning. We're going to rebuild our trade networks, find new allies, and create a human-centric economy that doesn't rely on the whims of alien bureaucrats. A hand shot up from the crowd. Chancellor, with all due respect, how? We're cut off from everything. Boltar smiled, a predatory gleam in his eye. Are we? The galaxy is vast, and the Council's grip isn't as absolute as they'd like us to believe. There are cracks in their system, forgotten routes, and overlooked species. We're going to exploit every single one of them. He outlined his vision. Small, agile teams of human explorers and diplomats seeking out the fringes of known space. They would map abandoned hyperspace lanes, make contact with species ignored or oppressed by the Council, and lay the groundwork for a new network of trade and alliance. It won't be easy, Boltar admitted. We'll face dangers we've never encountered before. But every challenge will make us stronger, more self-reliant. And when we emerge from this crisis, and we will emerge, we'll be a force that the Council can no longer ignore or control. The room erupted in a mix of cheers and heated debate. Boltar could see the spark of determination igniting in many eyes, but there were still doubters, still those who feared the enormity of the task ahead. One of the Martian representatives, his hologram flickering with static, spoke up. This all sounds well and good, Chancellor, but what about the immediate crisis? We have colonies on the brink of collapse, medical emergencies that can't wait for your long-term plans. Boltar nodded gravely. You're absolutely right. That's why we're implementing a two-pronged approach. While our long-term strategies take shape, we'll be focusing on immediate relief efforts. He gestured, and a series of holograms sprang to life around him, detailing resource allocation plans, emergency protocols, and rapid response teams. We're going to pool our resources, prioritize the most critical needs, and yes, make some hard choices. Every human world and colony will need to tighten their belts, but no one, I repeat, no one, will be left behind. The next few hours were a whirlwind of planning and debate. Boltar moved among the assembled leaders, addressing concerns, smoothing ruffled feathers, and slowly building a consensus. It wasn't perfect. There were still those who grumbled about appeasement or advocated for a military response. But it was a start. As the meeting wound down, Boltar found himself face to face with Admiral Adamo, the grizzled veteran who commanded Earth's defense fleet. Bold words, Chancellor, Adamo said, his voice low. But words won't stop a Council battlecruiser if they decide to make an example of us. Boltar met the Admiral's gaze unflinchingly. No, they won't. That's where you come in. I need you to take what we have and turn it into a force that can defend our space. Not just against the Council, but against anyone who might see us as easy prey now that we're on our own. Adamo's eyes narrowed. With what? Half our fleet relied on alien tech we can no longer maintain. Then we adapt, Boltar said firmly. Strip down what we can't use, rebuild what we can. I've authorized Project Solstice. It's time to dust off some of those experimental designs we shelved because they didn't meet Council regulations. A slow smile spread across the Admiral's weathered face. Now you're speaking my language, Chancellor. As the assembly dispersed, Boltar retreated to his makeshift command center. The next few weeks would be crucial. He had bought time and rallied support, but now came the hard part, turning bold proclamations into concrete action. The first reports from the scout teams began to trickle in almost immediately. Most were discouraging, dead ends, hostile encounters, or routes too dangerous to be practical. But there were glimmers of hope. A small team operating in the Oort cloud had stumbled upon an ancient hyperspace beacon, its signal so weak that the Council's sensors had overlooked it for centuries. Another group, pushing into the galactic core, made contact with a reclusive species of energy beings who seemed intrigued by humanity's sudden independence. Boltar pored over these reports, searching for patterns, for opportunities. Slowly, painstakingly, a new map of the galaxy began to take shape in his mind. It was a dangerous, unpredictable space, but one filled with potential allies and untapped resources. Weeks turned into months as Boltar's vision for humanity's resurgence began to take shape. The makeshift command center, once a hub of frantic activity, had evolved into a well-oiled machine. Holographic displays flickered with a constant stream of data from across human space and beyond, painting a picture of a species not just surviving, but adapting and evolving in the face of unprecedented challenges. Boltar stood before the central holomap, his eyes tracing the tendrils of newly established trade routes snaking through uncharted sectors. Each line represented a lifeline, a defiant statement against the Council's attempt to isolate humanity. But these achievements had not come easily. A transmission crackled to life, the hologram of Ambassador Sheldon Lee materializing beside Boltar. The diplomat's usually impeccable appearance was disheveled, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep. "Chancellor, we've made contact with the Zikathal Collective," Lee reported, his voice strained. "But there's been a complication." Boltar's jaw tightened. The Zikathal, a species of silicon-based life forms, controlled vast mineral resources that could be crucial for human industry. What kind of complication? Lee's hologram flickered, the connection unstable across the vast distances. "They're demanding a blood oath from our negotiators." "Literal blood, sir. They believe consuming trace amounts of a potential ally's bodily fluids allows them to understand us better." For a moment, Boltar was silent, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. In the old days, such a request would have been dismissed outright, seen as barbaric by Council standards. But those days were gone. "Tell the team to comply," he said finally. "But make it clear this is a one-time concession. We're seeking allies, not surrendering our autonomy." Lee nodded, relief visible on his face. "Understood, sir. I'll relay the orders immediately." The hologram winked out, leaving Boltar alone with his thoughts. This was the reality of their new existence. Every potential alliance, every scrap of resources or information came at a price. Sometimes that price was measured in credits or rare materials. Other times it was paid in pride, in compromises that would have been unthinkable just months ago. But with each successful negotiation, each new ally brought into the fold, humanity's position grew stronger. The Zakathal were just the latest in a growing network of species that had been overlooked or deliberately marginalized by the Council. Beings that saw in humanity a kindred spirit, resourceful, adaptable, and unwilling to accept arbitrary limitations. An alert chimed, drawing Boltar's attention to another section of the holomap. A blinking red icon indicated a distress call from one of their new outposts in the Vorlex Nebula. He tapped the icon, bringing up a visual feed. The image was grainy, distorted by interference from the nebula's intense radiation. But Boltar could make out the face of Dr. Catherine Oak, one of humanity's leading xenobiologists. Behind her, strange, undulating shapes moved in the mist. "Chancellor." Oak's voice was tense but controlled. "We've made a breakthrough with the Vorlex spores. They're not just a navigational hazard. They're sentient, and they're willing to help us." Boltar leaned in, his interest piqued. The Vorlex Nebula had long been avoided by Council ships, its corrosive spores capable of eating through hull plating in minutes. If Oak was right, this could be a game changer. "Explain, Doctor. Quickly." Oak nodded, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "The spores are a hive mind, sir. They've been trying to communicate for centuries, but the Council races never bothered to listen. We've established a rudimentary form of communication using modulated electromagnetic pulses. They're offering to create safe corridors through the nebula for our ships. corridors that would be death traps for anyone else. Boltar's mind raced with the possibilities. A secret highway through one of the most dangerous regions of space, inaccessible to their enemies. It was almost too good to be true. What do they want in return? That's the amazing part, sir, Oak said, a hint of excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. They want stories, information about the galaxy beyond their nebula. They're curious, Chancellor, lonely even. We can satisfy that curiosity in exchange for an unparalleled tactical advantage. As Oak continued his report, detailing the intricacies of communicating with a gaseous hive mind, Boltar felt a familiar surge of pride in human ingenuity. Where the Council saw only obstacles, humanity found opportunities. Where others dismissed strange life forms as threats or curiosities, humans sought understanding and alliance. The conversation with Oak was just one of dozens that Boltar would have that day, each bringing news of triumphs and setbacks from across the expanding human sphere of influence. But it was emblematic of the approach that was slowly but surely changing humanity's fortunes. In a secure facility beneath the Martian surface, a team of engineers led by Dr. Annabelle Kaya put the finishing touches on a prototype quantum entanglement communicator. Unlike previous models that relied on Council-controlled relays, this device promised instantaneous, untraceable communication across vast distances. "Initiate the test sequence," Kaya ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of expectation. This technology could be the key to coordinating humanity's far-flung operations without fear of interception. The device hummed to life, its internal mechanisms aligning subatomic particles in precise configurations. On a screen, a simple message appeared. "Hello from Mars." Thousands of light-years away, in a hidden outpost on the fringes of the Andromeda Galaxy, an identical device sprang to life. The message appeared, crystal clear, with no discernible delay. A cheer went up from the engineering team, but Kaya remained focused. "Send the response," she instructed the Andromeda team via a conventional time-delayed channel. Minutes later, the quantum communicator chirped. A new message appeared. "Hello from Andromeda. The future is ours." Kaya allowed herself a small smile. With this technology, humanity could coordinate its efforts across the galaxy in real time, outmaneuvering the Council at every turn. She reached for her comlink to deliver the good news to Boltar, knowing that this breakthrough would be but one of many rolling out across human space. Meanwhile, in a classified shipyard hidden within the rings of Saturn, Admiral Adamo stood before a holographic display of humanity's newest warship. The vessel was unlike anything in the old human fleet, smaller, more agile, and bristling with experimental weapon systems that skirted the edge of what was scientifically possible. "Run the simulation again," Adamo ordered, his eyes never leaving the display. "I want to see how she performs against a Council dreadnought." The hologram shifted, showing the sleek human ship darting around a massive, lumbering alien vessel. Conventional weapons splashed harmlessly against the dreadnought's shields, but then the human ship executed a series of rapid, unpredictable maneuvers. It fired a concentrated burst of tachyon particles, momentarily disrupting the enemy's shield grid. In that split second of vulnerability, a salvo of gravitic torpedoes slipped through, tearing the dreadnought apart from the inside. Adamo nodded, satisfied, but not celebratory. "Good, but not good enough. We need to shave at least 3 seconds off that attack sequence. In a real fight, those 3 seconds could mean the difference between victory and annihilation." As the engineering team scrambled to make the necessary adjustments, Adamo allowed his mind to wander to the bigger picture. These ships, fast, stealthy, and packed with bleeding-edge tech, were the physical embodiment of humanity's new strategy. They couldn't match the Council fleets in numbers or raw firepower, but they didn't need to. These vessels were predators, designed to strike hard and fade away before the enemy could respond. A junior officer approached, snapping to attention. "Sir, we've received word from the Epsilon Eridani outpost. The first batch of stealth probes has been successfully deployed along the Council border. Adamo grunted in acknowledgement, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Those probes would provide invaluable intelligence on Council ship movements, allowing the growing human fleet to avoid detection and strike at vulnerable targets. As humanity's military and technological renaissance continued in secret, Boltar found himself embarking on the riskiest diplomatic mission yet. The destination, a nameless rogue planet drifting in the vast emptiness between galactic arms. The potential allies, the outcasts, a loose coalition of species who had either fled or been exiled from Council space. The human shuttle touched down on the planet's frozen surface, the landing struts crunching through a layer of metallic snow. Boltar emerged, flanked by a small security detail, their breath frosting in the thin, frigid air. Before them stood a collection of structures that defied easy categorization. Some seemed grown rather than built, others pulsed with otherworldly energies. From the largest structure emerged a delegation as diverse as any Boltar had ever seen. Beings of plasma and living crystal walked alongside creatures that seemed to phase in and out of reality with each step. At their head was a figure that appeared almost human, save for the swirling vortex of dark energy where its face should have been. The figure spoke, its voice resonating directly in Boltar's mind. "Welcome, humans, to the edge of all things. We have watched your struggles with great interest. You are not the first to defy the Council, but you may be the first with the audacity and skill to succeed." Boltar inclined his head respectfully. "We come seeking friendship and alliance. Humanity stands ready to work alongside any who share our desire for true freedom among the stars." The negotiations that followed were unlike any in human history. Ideas and emotions were exchanged alongside more tangible offers of technology and resources. The outcasts, it turned out, possessed knowledge that the Council had suppressed for millennia. Scientific theories that reshaped humanity's understanding of the universe, and with it, the very limits of what was possible. As the talks progressed, Boltar felt a growing sense of excitement, tempered by caution. The outcasts were powerful, yes, but also unpredictable. An alliance with them would need to be handled carefully, lest humanity trade one form of subservience for another. But the potential benefits were too great to ignore. With the outcasts' knowledge and humanity's drive to innovate, they could create technologies beyond anything the Council could imagine. Hidden hyperspace lanes could be mapped, offering safe passage through regions long thought impassable. Weapons could be devised that bypassed traditional defenses, rendering even the mightiest Council warships vulnerable. As the final terms of the alliance were hammered out, Boltar allowed himself a moment of reflection. In the span of a few short months, humanity had gone from isolated pariahs to the linchpin of a growing coalition that threatened to upend the very foundations of galactic society. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but for the first time since their expulsion, the future seemed bright with possibility. Little did Boltar know that even as he shook hands, or appendages, with the outcast leadership, the first tremors of the coming storm were already rippling through Council space. On distant worlds and hidden outposts, those who had long chafed under Council rule began to whisper of the humans who dared to challenge the established order. Seeds of rebellion, once thought thoroughly stamped out, began to take root once more. The Council, in its arrogance, remained largely blind to these developments. Oh, there were reports of increased activity in the fringes, of ships appearing and disappearing in regions thought impassable. But these were dismissed as the desperate flailings of a species on the brink of collapse. After all, how could mere humans pose a genuine threat to the established order of the galaxy? It would be months before the true scope of humanity's resurgence became clear. By then, it would be too late. The rules of the game had changed, and humanity was writing the new playbook. The quantum communicator in Boltar's command center hummed to life, its sudden activation cutting through the low murmur of activity like a knife. The Chancellor's eyes snapped to the device, his body tensing instinctively. Only the most urgent messages came through this channel. "Chancellor!" Admiral Adamo's holographic form materialized, his face set in grim lines. "We've intercepted Council communications. They've discovered the nebula corridor." Boltar's jaw clenched. The Nebula Corridor, a clandestine trade route through the Vorlex Nebula, had become the lifeblood of humanity's burgeoning network. Its discovery was inevitable, but not this soon. How bad? "They're assembling a strike force," Adamo reported, his holographic fingers dancing over unseen controls. A tactical display sprang to life, showing a massive council fleet converging on the nebula's edge. Estimate 30 capital ships, twice that in support vessels. They're not taking any chances. For a moment, the weight of the situation threatened to crush Boltar. Thousands of lives, months of careful planning, all hanging by a thread. But that moment passed, replaced by a cold, calculating determination. "They expect us to run," he said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Let's disappoint them." Over the next few hours, Boltar's command center became a hive of frenetic activity. Encrypted messages flashed across the galaxy, calling in favors, repositioning assets, and setting the stage for humanity's most audacious gambit yet. As the Council fleet approached the Vorlex Nebula, their sensors swept the region, searching for any sign of human activity. But the nebula's corrosive spores played havoc with their instruments, creating a concealing haze of electromagnetic noise. Aboard the Council flagship, High Commander Drakthun chittered in frustration, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Where are they hiding?" he demanded, compound eyes scanning the tactical displays. "Our intelligence was clear. This is their primary supply route." His second-in-command, a being of living crystal, chimed softly. "Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach, Commander. These humans have proven resourceful." Drakthun's carapace flushed a deep crimson. "Resourceful? They are vermin, nothing more. Spread the fleet out. I want every asteroid, every pocket of gas searched. Find them." As the Council ships began to disperse, probing deeper into the nebula, they remained unaware of the trap slowly closing around them. Hidden within the hollowed-out cores of metallic asteroids, human ships lay in wait. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, their hulls lined with radiation-absorbing materials that rendered them all but invisible to sensors. Admiral Adamo stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Fianna, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the Council fleet's movements on the tactical display. "Steady," he murmured, more to himself than to his crew. "Let them come to us." Minutes stretched into hours as the Council ships pushed deeper into the nebula. Impatience began to give way to unease among their commanders. Something felt wrong, but none could put their appendage on exactly what. That's when Adamo gave the order. "All ships, initiate Operation Stormbreaker." Across the nebula, human vessels erupted from their hiding places like angry hornets from a disturbed nest. But instead of immediate weapons fire, they unleashed a barrage of specially designed electromagnetic pulses. The pulses, harmless to organic life, played havoc with the Council ship's navigation and weapon systems. Chaos erupted among the Council fleet. Ships veered wildly, their crews struggling to regain control. Some collided with asteroids or each other, their shields flickering and failing under the onslaught of corrosive spores that now poured unimpeded through hull breaches. Aboard the Fianna, Adamo allowed himself a grim smile. Phase 2, weapons free. Human ships darted through the confusion like wolves among panicked sheep. Their weapons, refined and improved with outcast technology, punched through Council shields with terrifying efficiency. Gravitic torpedoes imploded the massive engines of capital ships, while pinpoint-accurate laser fire surgically removed weapon emplacements and communication arrays. High Commander Drakthun watched in horror as his mighty fleet disintegrated around him. "Impossible," he chittered, mandibles quivering in disbelief. "They're nothing but primitives." A human voice crackled over the Council command channel, cold and precise. "This is Admiral John Adamo of the Human Alliance. Your fleet is defeated. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Drakthun's compound eyes darted frantically between tactical displays, searching for some way out, some hidden reserve that could turn the tide. There was none. With a sound somewhere between a hiss and a sob, he gave the order to surrender. As human boarding parties secured the Council flagship, Adamo turned to his communications officer. "Send word to Chancellor Boltar. Operation Stormbreaker is a complete success." Thousands of light years away, in his command center on Earth, Boltar received the news with a mix of elation and grim satisfaction. This victory, decisive as it was, marked only the beginning of a longer, more complex campaign. "Patch me through to our allies," he ordered, straightening his uniform. "It's time for the next phase." Across the galaxy, on worlds both within and beyond Council space, beings gathered around communication devices of all kinds. Some were sophisticated holographic projectors, others little more than jury-rigged radio receivers. But all crackled to life with the same message. "People of the galaxy," Boltar's voice rang out, clear and confident. "You have just witnessed the first defeat of a Council armada in living memory. But this was not merely a human victory. This was a triumph for all those who have suffered under the Council's oppressive rule." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. For too long, the Council has maintained its power through fear and manipulation. They've suppressed technological advancements, stifled cultural exchange, and ruthlessly crushed any who dared to challenge their authority. But their grip is slipping. Boltar's voice grew more impassioned. "To those who have been branded as outcasts, who have been deemed unworthy of a voice in galactic affairs, your time has come. The Human Alliance offers you not subjugation, but partnership, not stagnation, but progress. Together we can forge a new future, one of true cooperation and boundless potential." As Boltar's message echoed across the stars, its impact was immediate and profound. On countless worlds, seeds of rebellion that had long lain dormant began to sprout. Species that had chafed under Council rule for millennia saw in humanity a catalyst for change, a force that could upset the established order. The Council, caught off guard by the speed and efficiency of the human counterattack, scrambled to respond. Emergency sessions were called, fleets were mobilized, and frantic messages were sent to wavering allies, promising rewards for loyalty or threats for defection. But the Council's reactions, once so swift and coordinated, now seemed lumbering and desperate. Their vast bureaucracy, originally designed to maintain stability, now hindered their ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. In the weeks that followed, human forces struck with surgical precision at key points throughout Council space. Stealth ships, their hulls incorporating outcast phase-shifting technology, slipped past supposedly impregnable defenses to disable critical infrastructure. Trade hubs found their quantum communication relays mysteriously offline, forcing them to rely on slower, less secure channels that the Human Alliance could easily monitor and exploit. Each successful operation further eroded the Council's image of invincibility. Species that had once cowered at the mere mention of Council authority now whispered of resistance, of a future free from the stifling grip of galactic bureaucracy. But it was not just military victories that turned the tide. Human diplomats, trained in the art of cultural empathy that the Council had long neglected, forged alliances with species both great and small. They offered not just protection or resources, but a vision of a galaxy where diversity was celebrated, where each race could chart its own course without fear of reprisal. The Zikthal Collective, impressed by humanity's willingness to engage in their blood oath ritual, became one of the first major powers to publicly declare their support for the Human Alliance. Their vast mineral wealth and unparalleled expertise in silicon-based technologies provided a crucial edge in the ongoing conflict. As the conflict escalated, Boltar found himself working around the clock, coordinating military operations with Admiral Adamo, while simultaneously managing a complex web of diplomatic relations. The strain was immense, but the Chancellor drew strength from the reports flooding in from across the galaxy, tales of courage, of ingenuity, of species long oppressed finally tasting freedom. In a rare moment of quiet, Boltar stood before the giant holomap in his command center, watching as more and more sectors lit up in the colors of the human alliance. A presence at his side made him turn. It was Ambassador Lee, looking haggard but triumphant. "Chancellor," Lee said, his voice hoarse from countless hours of negotiations. "We've just received word. The Arcturus Confederation has voted to secede from the Council. They're requesting immediate alliance membership and military support." Boltar nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The Arcturus Confederation, a collection of highly advanced worlds near the galactic core, had long been one of the Council's staunchest supporters. Their defection was more than just a strategic victory. It was a symbolic death knell for the old order. "Send word to Admiral Adamo," Boltar ordered. "I want a task force ready to secure the Arcturus sector within the hour. And prepare a public statement. The galaxy needs to know that the momentum is on our side." As Lee hurried off to carry out his orders, Boltar turned back to the holomap. The Council-controlled territory, once vast and seemingly impregnable, now looked like a sickly organism being eaten away from within. But he knew better than to underestimate their resources or their resolve. The coming weeks would be crucial. The Grand Council chamber on Prime Council, once a bastion of order and control, now seethed with barely contained chaos. Emergency klaxons wailed in the distance, their persistent drone a testament to the unprecedented crisis facing the galactic elite. Holographic displays flickered with reports of system-wide rebellions, shattered trade routes, and unprecedented military defeats. High Counselor Thalavoria, her usually resplendent plumage now dull and unkempt, gazed out at the assembled representatives. Fear and desperation had replaced the smug superiority that once defined this august body. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice wavering, "we face the gravest threat to galactic stability in 10,000 years. The human insurgency. Insurgency!" The word crackled through the chamber as a hologram materialized in the center of the room. Chancellor William Boltar, his face set in lines of grim determination, stood before them. "Is that what you're calling it, Counselor? A simple insurgency?" Gasps and cries of outrage erupted from the assembled aliens. Thalavoria's feathers stood on end. "How dare you intrude upon—" Boltar's voice cut through the commotion like a plasma torch through hull plating. "How dare we? How dare you? For centuries, you've treated humanity and countless other species as pawns in your grand game of galactic dominance. Well, the game is over. The pawns have learned to play by their own rules." The Chancellor's eyes swept across the chamber, meeting the gaze of each species representative in turn. "We didn't want this conflict. All we ever sought was fair treatment, the freedom to grow and explore without your suffocating restrictions. But you couldn't allow that, could you? It would have upset your carefully maintained balance of power." XZB-146, the cybernetic representative, stepped forward. Its optical sensors pulsed with cold calculation. "Your actions have destabilized the entire galaxy, human. Billions will suffer in the chaos you've unleashed. Return to the fold now, and perhaps we can mitigate the damage." Boltar's laugh was short and bitter. "Mitigate the damage? The damage has already been done. Not by us, but by you. By this council. How many species have you suppressed over the millennia? How many civilizations have withered under your guidance?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we're not here to dwell on past injustices. We're here to forge a new future. One where every species, no matter how young or old, has a voice. Where innovation is encouraged, not feared. Where the strong protect the weak, instead of exploiting them." Thalvoria's voice trembled with a mixture of fear and indignation. "Pretty words, Chancellor. But words won't maintain order across a galaxy of trillions. You can't possibly hope to—" "We don't hope to control the galaxy, Counselor," Boltar interrupted. "That was your mistake. We aim to free it." With a gesture, Boltar activated a series of holograms surrounding him. They showed human ships and those of their allies, craft of designs the Council had never seen before, patrolling new trade routes, defending fledgling colonies, and dismantling the Baroque infrastructure of Council control. Even as we speak, joint human-alien crews are reactivating hyperspace beacons that your bureaucrats deemed too dangerous centuries ago. Scientists from a dozen species are sharing knowledge that you kept locked away, sparking a renaissance of technological and cultural growth. And yes, our fleets stand ready to defend this new order against any who would seek to reimpose the old chains. The Myrexian representative, its gelatinous form quivering, burbled in distress. You would plunge us all into chaos, without the Council's guiding hand. Your guiding hand has become a stranglehold, Bolter countered. It's time for the galaxy to breathe free again, to take risks, to make mistakes, to grow. He turned back to Thalvoria, his expression softening slightly. We're not here to destroy you, High Counselor. The offer stands. Join us. Lend your wisdom and experience to this new galactic community we're building. But understand this, it will be as equals, not as rulers. Thalvoria's mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed the implications. And if we refuse? Boltar's face hardened once more. Then stand aside. The age of the Council is over. Humanity and its allies will chart their own course from here on out. With a final, sweeping glance around the chamber, Boltar's hologram winked out, leaving the Council in stunned silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then, like a dam breaking, the chamber erupted into pandemonium. Accusations flew, alliances shattered and reformed in real time, and more than a few representatives quietly slipped away, already calculating how to align themselves with this new power in the galaxy. Thalvoria watched it all unfold, a cold realization settling in her core. The Council, for all its pomp and power, had been outmaneuvered. Not just militarily or politically, but philosophically. The humans had offered the galaxy a vision of freedom and progress that made the Council's promise of stability seem stale and oppressive by comparison. As the frantic debates raged around her, Thalvoria made a decision. With a few discreet commands to her personal communicator, she began transferring sensitive data to a secure location. The Council might be doomed, but perhaps she could still play a role in shaping this new galactic order. Thousands of light years away, on the bridge of the flagship Fianna, Admiral Adamo watched the Council's reaction through a secure feed. "Impressive speech, sir," he said, nodding to Boltar's hologram. "But words alone won't win this war." Boltar's image flickered slightly as he turned to face the Admiral. "No, they won't. But they'll give us the momentum we need for this next phase." "Are the fleets in position?" Adamo gestured to a tactical display where hundreds of ships, human and alien alike, were arrayed in complex formations. "Ready and waiting, sir. Operation Stormbreaker is go on your command." Boltar took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon him. With this order, he would be committing humanity and its allies to a course from which there could be no turning back. But the alternative, a return to the suffocating grip of Council rule, was unthinkable. "The order is given, Admiral. Godspeed." Across the galaxy, ships surged into action. But these were not the brute force assaults of old. Each strike was surgical, precise, targeting the key points of the Council's power structure with devastating efficiency. On the planet Nullar Prime, home to the galaxy's largest quantum communications hub, a team of human and Zekathal operatives infiltrated the central control spire. Within hours, the entire network had been rewired, its immense power turned to broadcast messages of freedom and revolution to every corner of known space. In the shipyards of Talasian Delta, Council dreadnoughts found their control systems overridden by Vorlex spores, reprogrammed to serve the new alliance. The few loyal crews who resisted were quickly overwhelmed by boarding parties led by humans and outcast warriors, their tactics a dizzying blend of technologies the Council had long suppressed. But it was not all violence and conquest. On worlds long neglected by the Council, human aid ships arrived, bringing food, medicine, and hope. Diplomats followed, offering membership in a new galactic community, one built on mutual respect and shared progress rather than domination and control. The Council's response was fragmented and ineffectual. Centuries of complacency had left them ill-prepared for an enemy that could strike from all sides at once, that could turn their own systems and subject peoples against them. Some fought to the bitter end, their ships and fortresses reduced to drifting debris. Others saw the writing on the wall and defected, bringing valuable intelligence and resources to the human alliance. As the days turned to weeks, the inevitable outcome became clear. The Council's grip on the galaxy, once thought unshakable, was slipping away. But Boltar knew that the hardest part was yet to come. Winning the war had been a monumental task. Building a lasting peace would be even more challenging. In a bold move that sent shockwaves through what remained of the Council's power structure, Boltar announced a galaxy-wide address. Using the very communication networks that had once broadcast Council propaganda, he prepared to lay out his vision for the future. The Chancellor stood alone in the broadcast chamber, bathed in the soft glow of recording equipment. He took a moment to straighten his uniform, to compose his thoughts. Then, with a nod to the technicians, he began. People of the galaxy, I speak to you today, not as a conqueror, not as a liberator, but as a fellow traveler on this grand cosmic journey. The war is over. The Council's reign has come to an end. But this is not a moment for triumphalism or revenge. It is a moment for reflection, for coming together, for charting a new course. Boltar's voice grew stronger, infused with passion and conviction. For too long, we have been told that stability could only come through control, that progress must be feared and contained. Today, we reject those lies. We embrace a future where every species, every world, has the right to determine its own destiny. He gestured, and holographic images sprang to life around him. Scenes of human and alien crews working side by side, of new technologies being developed, of long-oppressed peoples tasting freedom for the first time. This is not the end of galactic civilization. It is a new beginning. Already, we see the fruits of cooperation and free exchange. Diseases once thought incurable are being vanquished. Energy crises that have plagued worlds for generations are being solved. Ancient mysteries of the universe are yielding their secrets to our combined efforts. Boltar's eyes seemed to blaze with intensity as he continued. But make no mistake, this new era will not be without its challenges. We must be vigilant against those who would seek to impose new forms of tyranny. We must work tirelessly to heal the wounds of centuries of division and mistrust. It will not be easy, but I believe that together we are equal to the task. He paused, letting his words sink in across the countless worlds tuned into his broadcast. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but filled with unwavering determination. To those who once sat in the council chambers, who held the fate of trillions in their hands, I say this: you are not our enemies. Your knowledge, your experience, these are valuable beyond measure. Join us in building this new galactic community, but know that you will do so as equals, not as masters. Boltar straightened, his posture radiating strength and resolve. And to those who doubted humanity, who sought to clip our wings and contain our potential, I have this to say. His voice rose to a crescendo, echoing across the stars. You called us a threat, you were right. But not because we are dangerous, because we are unstoppable. Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.